needing to understand the students themselves and think about that as sort of their motivation. So the actual way you're going to teach the particular cohort you have is there as well. We also talked about knowledge, and so we were mentioning LCT, for example, in our room, and sort of looking at kind of epistemological questions as well. Student-friendly language. Okay, so I think also what we have here is kind of lots of ideas which are, I'll scroll down, there you go. Lots of ideas which I think again show that it's not, you know, when you're talking about pedagogy, it's quite a wide, you know, if we think of it in terms of the approach, it's kind of quite a wide thing. I think it's interesting also this idea of what you bring with you, because I didn't highlight that question, but I do think there's a thing. So we were talking, so the room I was in, I was with my former colleague from Bristol, Grant, who's very into cognitive genres. And so when I was at Bristol, we had lots of conversations over coffee about cognitive genres. And I think Grant, it's kind of Grant's thing. And I sort of associate myself much more like as having a sort of more academic literacies kind of background. And there are crossovers, but I think there's interesting things there of things that you're particularly into. And when we were doing the book, for example, I remember talking to someone who was very into using corpus linguistics as a way of understanding and approaching text and sharing that with students as well. So I think, you know, there's no particular answer here, but it's also interesting what comes with you. But a lot of you here are kind of going more with the context, looking at examples, thinking about student needs, okay, and working with text and text analysis. So on the last question, the H question, which I think we're sort of moving on to a bit here, someone's put here about explain to collaborators and students that our sessions allow space for practice, something that's not possible with students taught modules. That's interesting, isn't it? As a way of saying, so this is what we do. We kind of provide this extra space, this extra thinking space, this extra reflective space for people away from the main program, which can be very nice for a lecturer to think, this is good. But yeah, interesting. But I think I wonder whether, you know, you say, whether you've got experience of things like, you know, you talk to people about what your approach is, what it's based on, what your theories are as well with that. Anyway, let's keep that question going, because that kind of follows on to the next bit. But thank you very much for your comments on the Mentimeter. I just wanted to kind of come back to this with kind of some things that I know. And so there are, I think, people in the room, I think I saw some people here from some of these institutions, I don't know, but obviously I used to work at Bristol. I was in the room with Grant. I saw Katrina was here as well. Hi, Katrina. Yeah, I think one thing that happened at Bristol, and I think I wrote about this in the book as well, was that as a centre, it was a place where there was a very explicit kind of, these are our underpinning theories. So we had a page on our department SharePoint, as Catherine and Vicky from Bristol, Catherine High and Vicky Stevenson talked about at the PIM last year at King's. They presented on this. And that was a really interesting page, I think, because it kind of made explicit to all the teachers in the centre that these are our kind of theories, and there were links to how you could read more about them. You can see how this influenced our the reflective thing at the end of the chapter. But also it had things like phrases, like I might have to ask you to help me out here, Katrina, what they were now. I'm not sure if I remember, but tools, not rules was one of them, wasn't there? Or kind of, you know, lifting things off the page. There were different things that that we would say that were kind of like our approaches to things. And yeah, meddler in the middle was another big thing. Oh, look, Vicky. Oh, hi, Vicky. Samples, not models. Did I get one wrong? Okay, no, yes, that's fine. Okay, yes, okay, it's yes. So various things like that. But that was really interesting that we have a set of, this is what we do, and it's shareable. You can say to people that you know, you can share these with people. This is what we base our practice on. I had a couple of really interesting meetings with Jude Axelby and Lisa McGrath at Sheffield Hallam. We were talking about what they were doing there, and they did I thought, a great presentation at the PIM last time. I'm not sure if Jude is here, or anyone from Sheffield Hallam, but they were talking about how for each new in-sessional thing that they did, or each new venture or provision they were setting up, they specifically looked at what the approach they sat down and looked at it and said, right, what approach are we going to do with this? And they had a kind of template where they would say, right, we're going to go SFL with this one because we think, and they had reasons for it. I don't know if anyone else does something like that, but I thought when I heard that, wow, this is interesting. This is a really good tailored approach to each new provision that they were proposing as their way of doing things. I have had a couple of conversations with people from Dundee. I don't know if anyone from Dundee was here, but I think it was Delia and Mary that I was chatting to once in Bristol, and they were talking about how they had used the book and they'd used it in reading circles. And when I was in Plymouth at the conference dinner, I sat next to Ronnie from Birmingham, and she was telling me about how there were plans at Birmingham for them to also be using kind of reading groups to actually kind of come up with what is our pedagogy and to kind of have this ongoing thing. So I don't know anymore. Does anyone else, if you want to in the chat, or if you want to sort of come on and talk about it, do you do this? Is this part of your practice? Do you have a reading group? Do you consider? Do you have it written down somewhere what you do? Do you share with collaborators how you plan to approach your in-sessional? Maybe if you want to put in the chat, because I'm just thinking about time, maybe, Jenna, do we need to be a bit cautious of, yes, okay. Okay. A set of principles, okay. But do you share them, and do you, because it's something worth thinking about. I think if you kind of come up with this, it's like, how do you share them? And I'll kind of come to sort of the end, I think, about that. We had at King's, we had an in-house discussion about pedagogy through my colleague Clive's initiative, which is called Spotlight On, where we kind of post a video and everyone kind of can comment on it. And I did a little video about pedagogy and questioning your pedagogy and where it comes from. And as part of that, my colleague Jessica Cooper, who is our head of academic skills, so head of our in-sessional here, as part of her musing, she put these 3 questions, and I said, "Oh, that's great. I'm going to use those for my thing for the in-sessional SIG next week." But these are things I think that are very important to think about when it comes to pedagogy, leading on from what we did before. So when you're setting up something, if you want to share how you're going to do things, the in-sessional gang at King's have been talking about their pedagogy. They've been having this reflective process, but how can they just move away from telling students everything they need to know if we only have an hour with them? How can they kind of if you've got limited amount of time, how can you explain what the approach is? How can you go a bit more nuanced with what you're doing? If you don't know the students, how can you move to a more student-centered approach of like working with them, if you're thinking about that kind of approach, for example? And if you've got a specific approach, how do you get the buy-in from academics on that particular approach? Like, how do you say, so we're thinking of using SFL here. I mean, you're going to have to explain things at a certain level, isn't it? So some really interesting things coming up in the chat. I was going to suggest the last question, which was, is there such thing as a specific pedagogical approach? But I think maybe it'd be useful just to have a look at the chat. Jenna, have we got like a couple of minutes just to have a quick look at this?
Yeah, we've got 5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay. So what have we got in here? And if anyone wants to come in and speak, please do. But we've got some nice things looking back here. Peer observation as a way of being into reflecting on the pedagogy. That's really nice as well, isn't it? Yeah. Just going experience without delineating. Nice word, Neil, of which pedagogy is being used. That's true, isn't it? Yes, so the idea of delineating or kind of focusing on what it is that you actually do. And if you have a kind of more formal curriculum review project, as Caroline is mentioning there. And the CPD sessions on various theories. Yes, I was very impressed. I saw Damien Fitzpatrick here before their presentation at Plymouth about what they do and how they've, as a team, have kind of worked out their kind of expertise. That's a nice way of framing what it is that you do as well. The Xiaotong, we have a set of 8 teaching principles. Okay, so you have the principles. I'm not sure how many colleagues read them. Okay, thanks, Sam. Yes, but yes, I think at Bristol I was just embarrassing myself by not remembering them there. But we did have ones, and we used them explicitly in the kind of materials design and everything as well. And the idea was that that was the principled eclecticism, that you could bring in different things. So I think it's good to have them there, but it's also good to build in flexibility with how you apply them. Yeah, so some people saying they don't have such a cohesive approach. And is it good to think about in-sessional in particular? Okay, so just as a last point then, Jess has put that, thinking of in-sessional in particular, some in-sessional teams are clearly thinking about their pedagogy, but what do we all think about this? Is it something that we should look at apart from the rest of our centres, if we're kind of in a centre where we also do foundation and pre-sessional? Is there a need to have a special inquiry into what we do at in-sessional level? So we've got 3 minutes. If anyone wants to kind of have a chat about that, that would be great. I'm going to show you my references there and show you I've got some.
Neil, I put that in the chat, so I'll quickly mention. I do think it's very different because pre-sessional has a curriculum, there's assessment, there's constructive alignment, there's thinking about those. And in Durham at the moment, we don't have any in-sessional embedded modules where we do assessment of students and that sort of thing. And it's just a very different context, I think. So I think thinking about pedagogy, thinking about our approach to in-sessional that's different to pre-sessional, I think would be a useful exercise for our team in particular, just because they tend to be more workshop-based sessions we do, both EGAP and ESAP, and it doesn't have it's not the same kind of understanding of curriculum that we have on a pre-sessional. So yeah, so I think it would be different, and I think working with subject lecturers, as many people have talked about, and thinking about communicating our approach to them, communicating our approach to students to a certain extent, but also getting buy-in from both students and departments is a different experience as well. So yeah, I do think it'd be a good thing to do is to have our own principles for in-sessional.
I wonder from just what you're saying there that sometimes like lecturers I found like at Bristol as well, they would kind of, if you didn't have like a very strong, this is how we do it, they'd start to tell you with like, so I normally say this to them about how they approach, and you're like, thanks, that's really great. But yeah, so it's quite good in that way as well to have a strong sense of what we do.
To have a vocabulary, you have something to go into and into a conversation.
Yeah, unexplainable, yeah. Yeah. Usha, did you want to?
Yeah, I also think in order to make our position secure, and also in a way, I feel that to gain respect in the field, because sometimes I feel that when I work with lecturers and other people in the main module, like business school or whatever, they think they are above us, and we are like just kind of somebody, a person like a nurse or something. So they are the doctors and we are the nurse or something like that. I mean that kind of categorizing that they are the higher ups and we are lower down, and then we are just come here to kind of suddenly give a remedy, a quick fix kind of people. And that I don't like that. And I think when we think about our research and our practice and we say, oh, this is based on this, we have done research and this principle is what I'm applying, then you gain the respect, as opposed to say, oh, this is what I did in my classes. Then it's like kind of an opinion and nobody values that. And that is why it is important for us to show that, yes, I know what I'm talking about. I know where it is grounded in the theory, the practice, and I can tell you why I do what I do. And it's not just on the spur of the moment that I do things. It's not a quick fix, and you have to treat me with that kind of respect. And because I have had people ask me, oh, don't you think you're wasting your time by teaching these students? I mean, or basically what they're telling is you don't have the knowledge or the capacity. And that didn't go well with me. And I think you're doing a really good thing, not only to the field, but also to all of us in reinstating a position and saying that we know where we are doing, and we are researchers, and we are engaged in scholarship and the like. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I see Will has posted a couple of things in the chat, which is sort of the idea that you do have to work with what's there as well, though, don't you? So there is the other side to this. So, sorry, I'm going to carry on talking. Jenna, you're kind of like, do you want?
Thank you. What we could do, we've done this before with you, Neil, isn't it? Is that we kind of
I know, sorry,
and then if people want to stay behind and chat a bit more, I've got time. I don't know if you do, but let me just share my screen. Okay, we're back at the beginning. That's not where I want to be. I just want to say thank you to Neil. That was really useful. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone for coming. We do have one last event this academic year that will be on Thursday, the 5th of June, 9:30 to 11, delivered by B Bond, looking at developing a hybrid ESAP in sessional syllabus. And when we finish today, we can send out all the promo for that as well. Jess has just popped the feedback form in the chat. We would really appreciate it if people complete that. And again, thank you to Neil, and thank you everyone for coming.